We're going to call this meeting to order. It's the Public Safety Committee meeting for today, Monday, May 20th, 11 a.m. We have our full committee here, myself as chair, Councilman Green, and Councilwoman Gibson. Today, the City of Chester Public Safety Committee will entertain ordinance for repeal from our fire department. Commissioner Shirley is here to walk us through it. He's provided us with some material, just so you guys know we meet every Monday anyway, so he's kind of warmed me up as to the things that are going on. In the future, what we want to do is take the material, which has been well done by yourself, thank you, and share it amongst our committee before we sit down today. I think a lot of what we're going to do today is just sit back and listen to the presentations because we don't have a lot of material to work with. This is an exception. This is exactly what we would like to see. So thank you for presenting it to us. In that regard, the material that you have provided and what I know you're going to present is really simple. It's old ordinances that can combine into single ordinances and stuff that don't apply at all. I mean, I'll just give an example and then the show is yours. Chester used to have a lot of volunteer fire departments. There's stuff in here that still refer to old volunteer fire departments. So that was one of the biggest things that I said, wow, this is reason why we need to dig into here. But the show is yours, please.
Thank you. Good morning, Mayor Roots, Councilwoman Gibson, Councilman Green. Thanks for having me, and thanks for taking the time to listen. I have prepared a packet for you. If you were open up the folders on the left side of the folder, you'll see the 12 different ordinances that are in the fire prevention section of the city codified ordinances. The articles that are highlighted in yellow, they're ones that we're going to be speaking about today. One of the articles I'm going to dive in a little bit deeper. It's the second page on the left side there, and that's Article 1545, Fire Control Measures. And then I'll also just kind of explain that our current city code, while this, I'd like to inform you and go through and discuss these things with you. The current city fire code has already basically said that any other ordinance that's in conflict with the fire code ordinances should be repealed. So the language is already there, but this is more of just the formality and getting things done correctly. First thing I'd like to talk about is Article 1505, which is the Life Safety Code adopted. It was passed in 1993. And basically this was in addition to the fire code at the time that it was passed, which was under the building code organization, they passed the NFPA 1001 Life Safety Code in addition to the fire code. A majority of the Commonwealth uses the International Fire Code, if not, I don't want to say all of the Commonwealth, but the International Fire Code is a part of the International Code Council, and that's also what the Department of License Inspection uses when it uses the International Property Maintenance Code. There's the International Building Code, International Plumbing Code. It's just basically a whole series of codes, and they all cross-reference each other. That was is what we currently use for our fire code, which is Article 1501, which is the fire code which was passed in 2023, last year. So the Article 1505 with the NFPA Life Safety Code, it's redundant, and it's actually a lot stricter in terms of a lot of provisions than what's in the International Fire Code.
Okay, slow down.
Sure.
It's a good place to stop. The International Fire Code is new in comparison to many of the codes that are on our books right now.
Yes.
And many of the codes that you'll be presenting to us today are referenced in the newer International Fire Code.
That is correct.
And the reason for repealing many of the codes that you're going to bring to us today is because it's included in the International Fire Code.
That is correct.
Because the city has adopted the International Fire Code as the standard we're going to follow.
That's correct.
So we're kind of backtracking now. We've adopted the International Fire Code, but we haven't cleaned up our ordinances with the fire codes that relate to the past.
That's correct.
All right, so is that kind of clear? Or you have any questions on
And
that?
this fire code came out in 2018?
Yes, it's, the 2018 is the latest version that has been adopted by the state. The
Okay.
state will be moving to the 2021 International Fire Code.
Oh, before you go forward,
Sure.
to answer your question, the International Fire Code has been around for a while. The
Okay.
version that we're using now is the 2018 version. When did the International Fire Code first appear?
I would be lying to you if I told you when the International Code Council started. It was probably late 90s, early 2000s.
Right.
Because in the middle 90s, they were still using BOCA, which is Building Codes of America,
Okay,
which doesn't exist anymore.
okay.
Right. So that's what we're dealing with right now. What's on the books relate to old set of codes or ordinances that we put together ourselves to deal with certain issues. Sometime in the 1990s, I believe the International Fire Code came. I guess we've adopted that as the city standard every version that comes out.
I want to say, I think it was in 2012 or 2013, the city adopted the 2009 International Fire Code. Before that, it was BOCA, which
Okay.
it was like, it hadn't been adopted since the 90s, and that was done by Keith Fugate, who used to be in license and inspection, who's no longer here, but it was the 2009 International Fire Code up until last year when we adopted the 2018.
I have a question. The life safety code, is that the same as the International Fire Code?
No, it's not. So the NFPA is the National Fire Protection Association. They write standards,
Okay,
regulations. It's just basically industry best practices. And there's probably 18 or 20 volumes with 100-plus standards that are written. NFPA 1001 is the life safety code. It's just nationwide. There's other municipalities that will say, hey, look, we're going to use the NFP 1001 as our fire code, not the International Fire Code. So it can be used as a fire code if we want it to be used, but in just keeping with best practices and what we go along with the state, we decided to use the fire code. And if you do look through the International Fire Code, in many of the sections of the fire code, it references NFPA standards. So there could be a section here in the 2018 fire code that says, please see NFPA 1001 life safety code section, whatever, and then that's incorporated into this document. So we will use parts of 101, but we're not adopting it as a whole fire code.
okay.
And is that mic on? Because I know we're
believe it.
live.
Yeah, I was
Are
going
we?
to say, I was going
Maybe I'm
to
just
ask.
not
Okay, you guys,
speaking well
yeah,
into it.
'cause so they can hear you live too.
All right. So before we move forward, I think we're all on the same page. Like, number one on the top of this page is Article 1501, which indicates that we have adopted the International Fire Code. And as an action item, we need to change some of the parts to reflect new fee ordinances. We'll need to update, certain things. So that's what you're presenting us today. Many of the things that need to be updated, that's included in the International Fire Code, or things that need to be removed because it doesn't relate.
That's correct. What I'm just talking about today is the ordinances that are basically old, outdated. I was speaking with Councilwoman Gibson. I think the ones from 1969, if I remember correctly, they're just so outdated, but they are still technically on the books, and that's why I'm here today.
Okay, so one more time, let's do number two. Article 1505. What is it that we're attempting to do here?
We would like to repeal this. Again, it's it's adopting the NFPA 101 life safety code as the fire code, but just due to the fact that we've already adopted the 2018 International Fire Code, it's contradictory.
Okay.
So we would need to repeal Article 1505.
Does everybody get that? The
Yes.
need for that?
Oh, absolutely.
And if you don't get it right away, don't feel badly, because
Okay.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I've spent a lot of time trying to understand this as well.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to repeal the IFC,
No, no, no. We're going to be repealing Article 1505, which is
on the city's books.
on the city's books, and it's the current edition of, well, it was the current edition in 1993 of the National Fire Protection Agency, NFPA 101 Life Safety Code.
Okay, so we're going from the 93 one to the 2008
No,
version.
we're just getting rid of NFPA altogether.
Altogether,
Yep,
okay.
We're not going to be referencing the NFPA 101 Life Safety Code as fire code, because our fire code is the International Fire Code.
Okay, makes sense.
And can you explain where you got the codes from? Is that operating from the state level?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
The state has adopted the 2018 as the state's fire code. Most of the municipalities in the Commonwealth follow fire code. And just in keeping with all the other Department of License Inspection is using the International Property Maintenance Code, and they all cross-reference each other. So we're using one standard code set.
Understand.
Could you show us the cover of that book there? There you go.
And we're waiting on them to approve the 2021 version.
Yes, once the state approves the 2021 version, we'll look through it and we'll say, hey, we're going to adopt this. If you do look into your packet, the very last part on the left-hand side of the page is the adoption of the 2018 fire code, but there were some things that we amend in here. So we'll say like section 101, we wanted to read, City of Chester does this. Or,
Okay.
you know, so there are certain things that we will amend in here, but those will be spelled out when I do submit to you guys the 2021 fire code to be adopted as the new fire ordinance, fire code ordinance.
So at a glance, everything in yellow are repeals.
Yes, everything in yellow is what we're going to be discussing today, and those are all repeals.
Okay. Why do we have the other things in there, like number 3, number 4?
So the other thing, those are other articles that are in the fire prevention section of the city codified ordinances. I will be discussing with them at a later date. They're there for your, I guess, just
To anticipate you
to
coming back to
anticipate
talk
what
about those.
what you're going to be, or what I'm going to be bringing to you guys in the future. But I'll be sending out another email. Hey, I'm going to talk about revising this article. Here's the article. These are my thoughts, to get it to you ahead of time. So this way, when I do come and meet with you guys, it's not like you're seeing it for the first time.
Well, I want to thank you for all that you presented, because even looking through the documentation that I've received, it was stuff dating back to 1966.
Yes.
And we're not even operating in those kind of times. For example, the gas station pumps.
Yep. 1961. There's one from 1961. So.
Okay, so what we're being presented today is relatively easy work for us. The things that are highlighted in yellow are covered under the International Fire Code and don't need to be on our books anymore. So that's really all we're doing today. The other ones, like number 3, number 4, the ones that aren't highlighted, that's where we're going to have to put our real thinking caps on,
Yes.
because he's making changes that kind of modernize existing ordinances, not remove them. They still apply, but they just need a little tweak, a little update, and we're not discussing those today. But some of them are a little hairy, and we're really going to have to be the decision makers. We're not touching those today. So what we're touching today are just things that are kind of, if you will, no-brainers, but we need to hear them anyway. These are things that just don't apply, should be gone, because we've adopted the International Fire Code. It's not because we adopted the 2018 one, it's because we adopted the International Fire Code whenever we adopted it. These things should have been cut out back then. So we're doing a lot of catch-up work today. Continue.
That's correct. So they are all pretty straightforward. Article 5, which is the permit fees. As you know, Chief Leitner is working on a new fee schedule that will be passed through finance. Contained within that fee schedule ordinance is a location for fire fees. So again, this Article 1511 should be repealed, so this way when the new ordinance is adopted with the fee schedule, it's the current fee schedule. And not only that, the location of the permit fees should be in the finance section of the city codified ordinances, not the fire prevention section of the city codified ordinances. Even though they are fire fees, they're all part of finance. And that's, I don't know, I believe you're all on the finance committee as well, so you guys had, oh, you're not?
So,
Okay.
turn to the next page on the right, the second page. It relates to, you'll see at the top of the page, Article 1511 as it appears now. And as you look down, you see bonfires, airport helicopters, it has a fee for each of those. That's what's on the books now. What he's suggesting is getting rid of this entire article, and you can keep turning because there's pages, a couple pages of these fees. He wants this removed from,
Do anybody ever pay any of these fees?
There are some fees that are paid in terms of registration of fire alarm systems and sprinkler systems, but no, to my knowledge, no one's ever paid any of those fees because
Ever?
as
So
far
here
as-
you have a fireworks sale of and fireworks display of.
Yes,
So
so fire,
anytime,
we have, so there are certain permit fees that the fire department does collect for, and those are for fireworks, for fire alarm systems, and for sprinkler systems, and for contractors. But as far as, let me open that up to 1511.
so while he's looking at that, the recommendation here is that all fees, whatever applies, goes on the fee schedule and
Yes.
out of.
Out of this.
out of
Remove.
this. So
Okay.
that's kind of the simple answer to things, but
Yes.
it's good because the questions you're asking are the same ones I asked. Like, what, why, how?
And
I didn't ask that one, though. Are people paying these fees?
yeah.
But when I first
Yeah.
saw them, I was like, how, what? Vehicle tire rebuilding plans. You're like, what is this?
yeah.
Dry
So
cleaning
when you
plan.
move these fees over to the
Well,
fee schedule.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
You already went too far.
Oh.
Most of these fees are gonna go away, period.
Okay.
So the fees that are on the fee schedule will be very minimal. There's just a few you talked about.
Yes. And not only that, but again, incorporated into the International Fire Code there's two types of fees. There's operational fees and construction fees. What is referenced in the fee ordinance is pulled right out of the fire code. So a lot of these fees in the fee schedule are already noted in the fire code, and then they'll be basically cross-referenced in the fee schedule. So they're saying, okay, for, let's just say bonfires, $50 each. There is an operational permit for a bonfire in the fire code, but where that fee will live ordinance-wise will be in the fee schedule of the city that is adopted in the finance section, if that makes sense.
So if I wanted to do a bonfire at my house, I would have to come here and get a permit and pay a $50 fee?
Yes.
Really?
Well, I can tell you right now, it depends on, and I can open up, recreational fires are a little different. You can have recreational fires. We could have the discussion because I don't want anyone just starting a huge bonfire because it's a public safety hazard. But yes, there are fees for bonfires.
I don't think people know this.
No,
They don't, and
we
the-
actually had a situation, what was it?
A couple months ago?
A couple months ago, we'll call it a couple months, I think it was a little more than a couple months. Chester Panthers
Yes.
wanted to do a bonfire. And, that was my first encounter of it, and I have to talk to these guys. I'm like, bonfires? I didn't even think we did such a thing. And I later learned that they have been doing it pretty much on an annual basis. Put a lot of guard rails around it, but yeah, there's fees for bonfires, there's actual fees that, it's 2 hour, let's just talk logically. If someone's going to have a bonfire, we want it in a safe location. We want the fire department there. We want to have barricades around the fire so people can't get close. Do we want the fire department to start the fire? Do we want the fire department to extinguish the fire? What materials are going to be burned in the bonfire? Is it going to be wood, paper, treated wood, pallets? You know, all those things have to be considered. I threw in, we have to inform the neighbors that a bonfire is going to occur just in case the smoke, depending on how the wind blows,
Right.
should be. So there's things that's in the bonfire ordinance that doesn't encompass even all those things, but there certainly is a fee. What we're doing today, though, is not really diving into each of these fees. It's just eliminating the fee schedule from the fire portion of the ordinance and putting it where it belongs. But to get down to the, you know, to the individual fees is not the task that we're here to do today.
Okay.
Okay? But yeah, bonfires are a real thing in the city, believe it or not, by certain people who want to have them. Culturally, it didn't seem to fit. You know, I've seen, like on college campuses, bonfires is a regular thing. But, you know, I learned really quickly that the Chester Panthers homecoming, right? It was their homecoming celebration.
Yes.
Yeah. Homecoming, is that the right word? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because there was a game the following day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
over there where the
Big
lake
game.
is where they wanted to do it, and we kind of put a lot of, but just imagine having the fire company out there, you know, that's personnel, that's trucks, that's got to be paid for.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
and $50 probably isn't enough, or
At
whatever
all.
the ordinance number or the
Not
amount
at
is.
all.
And that's why we're going through this process. Like, this stuff is old, you know, and has its flaws, but continue.
That's why we're here to do the work.
That's why we're here.
So the next article I'd like to discuss is Article 1525, which is open burning. Again, it just needs to be repealed. It's already covered in Section 307 of the International Fire Code. So
And again, on the right side are the
the actual-
existing
yeah, the existing
ordinances as they are on the books.
Unfortunately, I can't get you each a copy of this, but if you'd like, I can send you PDFs of it, so if you want to actually go into the different sections and see what's all spelled out in the fire code, all that information is in there.
So just to be redundant, like what we're doing here on open burning is we're taking these 2 pages that exist, ripping them out, and following what's in that book.
It's already.
Makes sense.
Okay.
Article 1531, explosives and fireworks, that actually has an entire chapter dedicated to it in this book. So that would be Chapter 56, explosives and fireworks. Article 1535, gas stations. The ordinance basically says that there has to be some type of locking device on the nozzles so that when the gas station's closed, no one can come and use the pump gas. And I was telling Councilwoman Gibson, if there's a gas station still in the city that you can get gas just by turning the nozzle on, I'll be filling up my vehicle there every day. So that's just kind of outdated. But again, it is covered in, that has its own chapter as well, Chapter 23, motor fuel dispensing facilities and repair garages. So everything that comes down to the fuel pumping stations, the safety features that they have to have and everything like that is all addressed in that chapter.
All right, I'm going to be redundant again.
Yep.
You know, as you see it, as it appears in our ordinance book now, this is not a process that we're trying to correct anything that's here. We're
Just
ripping
taking
it
it
out,
out.
Yep.
going within the book. The pieces on here that are not highlighted are going to remain in our book, if you will, but we will be tweaking. So that's where the harder work will come when he comes back for those. And we probably won't do we probably won't be doing them as a group. Some
No,
of them are
no.
going to require
Yes.
long discussions individually.
Okay.
Okay?
And I'm going to give you guys a little bit of teaser. We're going to be meeting again on June 10th. At that point, I'll have the police department with me as well. But I'll have 2 ordinances, and I'll kind of give you a little teaser of what it is that we're going to be discussing, so you guys kind of have a rough idea. But I will also be emailing you the drafts of those revised ordinances for your guys' review. But I'll give you the teasers at the end.
Thank you.
Article 1541, Building Fire Protection Systems, passed in 1990. Again, it's covered in Chapter 9 and Chapter 11. Chapter 9 deals with any type of new construction that's done here in the city. If it's required to have fire protection systems, whether it be smoke detection systems, sprinkler systems, special fire suppression systems, that's covered in Chapter 9 for new construction, and then Chapter 11 is existing buildings. And that kind of boils down to if we walk in and there's a building that's been built since 1960, I can't tell them you need to put $50,000 worth of, work into this building because I want a fire alarm system in here. It basically, I don't want to say it grandfathers existing buildings, but that being said, let's just say I bought this building that was built in 1960, I'm going to come in and renovate it. Okay, well, if the renovation's over a certain percentage, which I believe it's 50%, then you're required to update to the new code. So depending on how much renovation they do in the building, I can say, all right, well, you now need to basically bring this building up to current fire code. And then there are some buildings that even if, when they were built, if they didn't have fire protection systems, like assisted living facility, like for seniors, and there's no fire suppression system in there, in that Chapter 11, if the code does call for it, we're able to say, well, look, because of the life safety hazard here, even though your building was built in the 40s, unfortunately, because of the type of building that the occupancy that you're using the building for, we need you to have these life safety systems in place. But again, Chapter 9, Chapter 11 covers building fire protection systems for both new and existing buildings.
So in situations like that, you only have the opportunity to identify, using your example, an assisted living space. It's during fire inspections that you go in, you look, you see that for safety reasons and, for the safety reasons, because the building was built in 1929, it didn't have these provisions. We do an inspection now and say, hey, this has to go in place because of the new existing codes. The only way that we would know that the retrofit would need to be done is because we went in there and did an inspection.
That is correct.
We can't just rush into buildings willy-nilly looking for this type of stuff.
No.
Okay. That's important to know. The other thing that's important to know is people who come to town, and this angers a lot of people, they'll open a new business in an old building, and this kind of goes outside of fire, but L&I might require outdoor lighting or things that don't exist in the building because it wasn't required at the time. So kind of relate all that together. There's buildings that you see, I say commercial buildings that are Clark dark at night, but the one right next door has all kind of almost floodlights on them. And, that's sort of the reason why, is because, in a way, some people are grandfathered in and can continue on that way. Here's a case that he's given that, a building, if it's an assisted living thing, was grandfathered in, but because of life and safety, reasons and new codes, we have the ammunition to say do an update. With the lighter example of, a donut shop opening up and it was in a otherwise abandoned, former storefront that didn't have lights. Some of our developers get really mad when they find out that I thought I could just move in and operate as before, but now, L&I is coming in and demanding that I have outdoor lights or, the sidewalk has to be fixed. It wasn't fixed. The guy had it for the last 50 years and never fixed the sidewalk. Those are the things we run into, a lot. So to be conscious of, why particularly renovations have higher standards than existing businesses is important to know, because a lot of times people get mad at us. That guy down the street doesn't have to have that. Why do I have to have it? Because I'm new. Well, it's because you're new.
Yes.
Right.
Yep. I'd like to just momentarily skip over Article 1545, because that one, it's a little bit more discussion there. It's not as straightforward as the other ones, but the last one I want to talk about, or the second to last one, is Article 1555, which is smoke detection system installation. Again, this is the same thing as fire protective systems. It falls under Chapter 9 and Chapter 11 for both new and existing buildings. And it's all, whether it's a sprinkler system, whether it's a fire alarm system, it's a fire protection system. So it's all categorized under those two same articles. So the one, and I
Hold on. I
I'm sorry.
think the councilman has a question.
Oh, my apologies.
No,
Oh, but you did run that, you went through that pretty fast, and that's pretty important. So slow down on that one, because fire protection and, fire detection and life safety systems and all that. Give me an example of what you're talking about.
So with Chapter 9, it just covers fire protection services.
So give me an example of a
And-
fire protection.
So that it's a broad category, but it could be something as simple as a smoke detector that you go buy at Home Depot, or it could be a smoke detector that has to be hardwired into a permanent battery supply system, but it's not necessarily monitored. It could be the fire alarm system like we have here at City Hall, to whereas if a smoke detector goes off, it goes to an alarm company, the alarm company calls the 911 system, the 911 system calls the fire department, and then we respond out here. It could be sprinkler systems, having sprinkler systems, and there's multiple different types of sprinkler systems. There's wet systems where there's water always in the pipes. There's dry systems where if it's an occupancy that is subject to weather extremes, especially freezing, that we don't want water in the pipes, because if it froze, it would break, and then when it thawed out, it would flood the building out. There's special suppression systems. So, for example, in restaurants, the cooking oils that we use, we can't put water on that because it's basically grease, and you're going to cause it to go. So there's a special mixture that is used, for lack of a better word, that we'll use to suppress kitchen grease fires. Think of your electronic server rooms and your computer server rooms. We don't want to put water on electronic equipment, one, because it's electricity, and two, because it'll destroy it. So they're what are called like clean agent systems. So rather than use water to put the fire out, we might fill the room with like carbon dioxide, and that basically pushes out all the oxygen and doesn't allow the fire to continue to burn.
Okay, hold on.
Because of
You're
that.
saying we, and I'm hearing that you're talking about the fire company coming in, putting on fire. But what you're talking about,
Well-
particularly in the grease fire, I don't know if you guys seen like the hoods.
Yep.
And then they got the nozzles that will spray like a powder. So if there's a sense that there's a fire on the grill, the restaurant itself has to have a suppression system in place that's suitable for that. So it would be that powder. So that's what these ordinances do. They make sure that the right suppression system is outfitted for the right type of application.
Correct. And that's when you look at Article 1541, which is building fire protection systems, and Article 1555, which is smoke detection systems. Those are all under a big umbrella of fire protection systems, and it just depends on what the occupancy is being used for, whether it needs something as simple as smoke detectors or if it needs a fancy smancy suppression system. And again, that's all covered under Chapter 9 and Chapter 11.
So, again, 1555, what are we repealing here?
The entire article. Because it's covered in Chapters 9 and Chapters 11 of the Fire Code.
you're just ripping that one out.
Just rip that one out. All of these are just rip them out, but I just want to explain to you guys what it is that we're ripping out, and that even though we're ripping it out, it's already in there,
It's-
in here, in Article 1501.
So you're not taking anything away, you're just.
We're not taking anything away. These are just redundant, obsolete articles that are still on the books, which, because then you could have someone say, well, this says this here and this says this here, which one do I listen to?
Right. Thank you.
You're welcome. The last one I wanted to go back to is Article 1545, which is fire control measures, and I actually, the second portion of your packet actually has Article 1545. This article wasn't as straightforward as the other ones, where it just basically covered one topic. This article covered many topics.
Yes.
And when you look at the different sections in the article, it will show whether it's either covered by the International Fire Code or covered by state law. And not to go through all of them, but like if you want to look at just Article 1545.02, the authority at fires and other emergencies, that's covered in Chapter 1 of the International Fire Code. So that's already in there. Number 2, or I'm sorry, 1545.03, interference with fire department operations, covered in the Fire Code, but it's also covered under PA Title 18, Crimes and Offenses, Chapter 51, Section 5112, obstructing emergency services. So these are state laws that are on the books that are, I don't want to say supersede city ordinance, but they're already in place at the state level. And in speaking with the police department, because they're going through this process as well as updating the city codified ordinances as it relates to police, when a lot of these ordinances were passed, there weren't state laws in place. So the municipalities had to pass these laws because there was nothing in place. The state then finally caught up and said, okay, let's pass these state laws. And again, in discussion, just the experience that the Commissioner Gretzky, as well as Captain Goldschmidt, they've expressed to me is that whenever the police department cites someone, if they were to cite a city ordinance, the judges aren't familiar with it. So they're like, it's a city ordinance, slap on the wrist. Whereas if it's a state law, it's something they're a lot more familiar with. They're like, okay, look, this is actually state law. We need to hold you guys accountable to this.
Do our local magistrate district judges, do they have copies of the city ordinances?
That I do not know.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd have to find that out for you. I couldn't tell you.
Because, I mean, you would think that would be, especially since we give out citations and we give out fines, it would be good if the city provided our magistrate district judges who, ultimately will hear cases from the city if they have a copy of our ordinance books so that they have something that they can look at when they're making a ruling on any case when it pertains to the city.
Yes, I agree with you 100%.
So, I don't know, maybe that's something we can look into, but.
Yeah, and I also wouldn't be surprised too, and I don't really, I can talk to you all day about fire department. I don't know about the legal system because that's police department. I also don't know if these magistrates are responsible for multiple municipalities.
Okay.
So it's like, okay, well
It
now
may
I
be
have to
different
know
for-
30 different municipalities ordinances where it's just, I know the state. So it
Okay.
could
So
just
the state trumps all of the municipalities, is that correct?
in some ways, yes. In some ways, no. You can, it's to my understanding, we can pass something that's more strict than what the state has in place, but we can't pass anything that like lessens what the state has in place. So I can't make a law that says murder you get 6 months probation. So like that's a state law.
Right.
Now if we want to say and I'm just using that we want to make it more, that's acceptable. But it's my understanding we can't always make it less.
Okay.
The only thing that I did want to talk about in here that there is no state law that I'm aware of yet, but I am going to be talking to the district attorney's office, is section 1545.17, which is the sale of defective fire extinguishers. That is not addressed anywhere in the fire code, and I couldn't find anything state law-wise. In my 15 years, I don't know if anyone's ever been charged for the sale of defective fire extinguishers, but I'd like to say anytime there's a rule, there's probably a reason behind that rule, so there could have been a point where people were selling defective fire extinguishers. But I'd like to talk with the district attorney's office and say, hey, look, if I had a guy who's knowingly selling defective fire extinguishers, is there anywhere else within all the state statutes that they can be charged? And if that's the case, we would just, reference that.
I know I was looking after we met this morning, and it was a lot of different rules, but I had a question as to which ones we would follow because there were so many. But there was something mentioned, but I'll let you continue to do your due diligence.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to look into that because I'm actually kind of curious myself. I do know I was talking with a representative of the, call it like the National Fire Extinguisher Association. There's a more accurate name for it. But they were telling me about a case in Bucks County where a guy was going around and inspecting fire extinguishers. Well, and actually wasn't even inspecting them. He was just putting tags on them to say, yeah, they passed. And I believe it was Lower Southampton Police Department kind of set up a sting operation. He came in, basically was like, yeah, these all passed. Never even really inspected them, and they were able to lock him up and charge him with something. So that was kind of explained to me. Now, it's not necessarily the sale of defective fire extinguishers, but there's got to be some type of recourse of action that if someone is ever found to be doing that, we can do that. And if not, we can make that a city codified ordinance. Is that okay? We're going to I'll introduce you guys an ordinance saying, if anyone's found to be selling, or you're not allowed to sell defective fire extinguishers because of city ordinance 1001 or whatever you want to call
It keeps them accountable for one, and then it keeps a tragedy from happening if
Yes.
those things aren't in operation correctly.
Yep. But that was the only one within Article 1545 that is not, I can't find addressed anywhere in the fire code or in state law. And again, I'm working on finding that. But again, just this article covered so many different topics that I really wanted to kind of get into, dive deep in it so you guys could see, okay, well, this is covered here, this is covered there, this is covered there, whereas all the other articles is pretty straightforward. It's right here.
So in this case of 1545, are you recommending we don't repeal this until we get 1545-17 settled?
I'm recommending repealing it. I can talk with the DA's office, and I can check. I don't know when the last time we actually cited someone for the sale of defective fire extinguishers. I'm fairly comfortable with saying between now and whenever I get the answer or we need to pass a new ordinance, I don't think we'll have any issues.
So are you also suggesting, recommending, if you can't find any information on the sale of defective fire extinguishers, that we create an ordinance to just deal with that
Yes.
one issue? Okay.
Yep. And to be honest, if just for, if for any other sake that we want to hold off until I do have a definite answer or introduce new legislation, we can hold off on repealing Article 1545. It doesn't hurt. I just figured we'd do all the easy work in one fatal swoop with just, hey, we'll tear this out, tear this out, tear this out, we're good to go. But if you guys would like to, I'm comfortable either way.
All right. So I think what he left us with is a real easy task, except for Article 1545 because of that one .17 fire extinguishers, which we can discuss on our own and decide how we want to proceed. So I think our two options are just nix the whole thing, or don't nix it because of this one thing. But I think, like you said earlier, something happened somewhere for that to be in there.
Yes.
There's always there's a name behind every rule in the world.
Yeah.
Will it ever happen again? I can't even imagine somebody going through a junk pile and trying to sell, but you'd never know.
Never know.
We got some hustlers out here. I would rather be safe than sorry on that one.
And that concludes everything that I was going to, or that I'm introducing for repeal. Just as a teaser, the next two ordinances that I'm going to be presenting to you guys in June will be Article 1507 and 1509, which deals with the payment of fire insurance escrow and insurance proceeds. There's not going to be too much change to that. I did discuss with Mayor Roots. The city of Harrisburg requires landlords to have fire insurance on any rental property within the city and name the city as an additional insured. So this way, if the property catches fire and the landlord just decides they want to walk away from it, we'll have the ability to either demolish or rehab that property and not come out of the city's pocket, but out of the insurance policy. So
That is much
Good
needed.
one, yes.
Yes, but
hold on, let me tell you, as common sense as that sounds, there's
Yes.
a lot to be discussed.
There's going to be a lot to be
Whether we move
discussed.
forward
And
on that, so-
for the, I do you
Because
see?
I felt just like you, like, yeah, of course, but there's
Yeah.
another side to that.
There is, and I'm sure the landlords will love me, because I know if the landlords are upset about paying a $200 rental registration fee, and we turn around and tell them that they're going to need to get insurance policies for it, so you guys might have your hands full with that, but
Don't worry, we'll just blame you.
yeah, exactly. I'm here to take the fall. So, and then the other one, and again, I was talking to Councilwoman Gibson about this morning. The second one, even though it's 3 articles, 2 of them are basically intermingled. The second one will be the licensing fire protection equipment installers and contractors. Currently, with the city ordinance, which was passed in 1993, if you wanted to start your own sprinkler installation company, and called Green Sprinklers, to get a license by the city, per the ordinance, the city has to develop a test and administer a test to make sure you know what it is that you're doing. All right. What a lot of municipalities are doing is it's called NICET, and I forget what it stands for. It's the National Engineers, but it's a third-party agency that certifies engineers that say, okay, look, they've met a standard, we've tested them, they know what they're doing, and there'll be different levels. So if you want to come in and inspect and test, you're at a level 2. If you actually want to design and install, you need to be at a level 3. So it's basically a third party that's saying that they verified that, yes, these people are skilled, experienced, knowledgeable people when it comes to these types of systems. And again, one of the other requirements that we're going to have is if you want to be a licensed contractor and work on any type of fire protection system, because it is a life safety system, you need to be insured. And again, you're going to list the city of Chester as another assured, because if that building burns down and the property owner says, well, why did you license this guy? He didn't know what he was doing. Well, rather than that person sue the city and we have to pay out of our own pocket, no, that contractor is going to insure us as an additional insured, that we're not seeing anything out of our pocket. And hey, look, as far as we were concerned, he met the national level certification. We reviewed everything. It looked good on paper, what he actually did. And that would be, again, follow up with inspections as they're going through the entire process. But it's one more
Level of
safety
security.
mechanism that's in place for us. But those will be the two to three ordinances that I'll be introducing to you. And then once the state does go to the 2021, I'll be introducing that for adoption. But that basically cleans up everything in the fire prevention section of the city codified ordinances. So pretty straightforward.
Thank you, great job.
Thank you.
Yes,
No problem.
very
Thank
good
you
job.
for
I think
speaking
on
with
our
me today.
end, I'm comfortable sending to Chester City Council all the repeals that we stated today. We'll have to decide among ourselves, that very last one, how important the fire extinguisher piece is. Do you have a timeline when you might get an answer from your friends?
I could probably have it to you wait, meeting's on Wednesday. I thought it was next
Well,
Wednesday.
it wouldn't come up this Wednesday anyway.
I will have it before it goes to the floor for a vote at the regular city, the next regular, or whatever city council.
Okay.
meeting. As long as it's not Wednesday,
Within 2 weeks.
within 2 weeks, I can have that for you.
Perfect.
Great.
But I'll just say, I am comfortable saying, if you repeal it, I wouldn't be like, oh my God, we should really be worried about it.
Right.
So,
Thank you, sir.
And
no problem, thank you.
Any other questions?
No, I don't have
Commissioner?
any.
Excellent job. Is the June meeting scheduled?
The June meeting is scheduled, yes.
Okay, for,
June 10th, I
June 10th.
believe it's at 1 PM.
okay, so we'll be meeting again on June 10th to discuss number 3 and number 4. That's before us now. Payment of fire insurance proceeds and fire insurance escrow. I promise you, we're going to sit down and talk about this fire insurance before we sit here, because there's a couple things that if we can clear up before we hear kind of the flip side of why we would be challenged with doing that, I'd much rather do it before we sat here, because it could be an hour discussion. There's some stuff in there that's surprising as to why we would give it a lot more consideration than what we heard on the surface.
Well, I'm interested in hearing.
Yeah, I was
It is,
kind of blown
uh,
away at what I heard.
Yeah, it's June 10th at 1 PM, and it's my understanding that Commissioner Gretzky will be doing the same thing that I did today. He'll be introducing to you guys a lot of ordinances that are basically, look, they're already covered here, we just need to kind of tear them out. And then he'll begin to start with the, all right, these we kind of need to keep in place, but we need to basically revise them to bring them up to 2024.
All right, with that, meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Good job.